Half a millennium ago, Christopher Columbus, or Colón as he is known here in Spain, pointed the way to the New World, persuaded the king and queen to give him 3 small ships, and set out to find it. It was one of the great voyages of history. Today, the process of discovery has been reversed. The New World is reaching back to discover Spain, and the people of Spain, too, are in the process of discovering the many new ideas that have arrived in their old land. It is another remarkable voyage. If a single building can embody the traditions and the image of Spain, it is the Escorial, the pantheon of kings and queens.
The Spaniard always is afraid of being ridiculous, or people will laugh at you, losing face, losing image. That's a fact. That means that we don't have soul. In a way, we are pagans enough not to have soul. We have just image. So if you lose image, you lose everything.
But it is clear that both the soul and the image are safe in this elaborate mausoleum. The monarchs who repose here dreamed of a whole world presided over by Spain. They had to accept something less. But the Escorial, with its 2,600 windows, is an architectural and decorative masterpiece that celebrates indeed their great unfulfilled dream.
Spain was invaded by the Arabs for 7, 8 centuries. In Toledo, there was a great translation center where Jews, Arabs, and Christians together worked to translate all old scientific or philosophical works, for instance, from ancient Greece, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, was translated in each of the different languages. So it was a great open university, let's say, absolutely open. And I have to say that it has not been so easy to have the Jews and the Arabs together afterwards or even now. So it was an example of an open society.
We went then to visit the work of one man who helped significantly to unify Spain after the Arabs were forced to leave. The paintings of Domenico Theotokopoulos, El Greco, the Greek. His stunning religious portrayals, replete with penitence and fervor, helped to create a national unity based on Christianity, on Catholicism. The great cathedral at Toledo. El Greco spent much time in this building, and his son actually worked here. Construction began in the 13th century, and like all great buildings, it was a reflection of its time. The building embodies the Mozarabe style, meaning that it has a Romanesque base with Arabic ornamentation. When the capital was moved to Madrid in the 16th century, Toledo lost some of its vigor and began to live in the past. But there had been a harmony here between people that has never been found since. The Jews were expelled in the same year that Columbus sailed, and then the Arabs, unless they converted to Christianity. But perhaps the matter was not quite as simple as that. Senor Cela gave us another insight into this moment in Spanish history.
Fortunately, the expulsion of the Jews and Arabs frequently remained a theoretical thing. Unfortunately, many Moors and Jews did leave Spain, but there were many who stayed. They either became Christians or they acted as if they had been converted. We don't know much about that. I always believe that there isn't a single Spaniard who could swear that there is not in him a drop of Jewish or Moorish blood.
While Toledo was the Christian capital on the Iberian Peninsula, it was here in Cordoba that the Moors held sway. As far back as Roman times, there was a significant town here. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, it was the home of Arabic scientists and mathematicians who worked with their Jewish colleagues to create a brilliant metropolis. And then arrived another powerful influence.
Catholic tradition has been very strong in Spain. On the one hand, you have to think that Muslims were in Spain for centuries, so in some way fight to free Spain from the Arab invasion was a kind of, you call that a crusade. It was not a violent fight against Arabs. They, for many centuries, they were living together and trading openly. Was not. Things became much more radical afterwards. Became more radical when the Protestantism started. And in some way, Catholic religion became an instrument against foreign influence in some way.
Cultures have always influenced each other. One becomes part of the other. This is how a new hybrid culture is born, one which is already a mixture of cultures. This is how the mestizo races have evolved. Naturally, the Moors influenced Spain. But there's no doubt that we Spaniards also influenced the Moors and the Jews. Naturally. They stayed with us, and they're still here.
This vast structure, today the Cathedral of Cordoba, tells the great and often sad story of La Reconquista. It was originally built as a mosque, designed in fact to be a place of pilgrimage that would compete with Mecca itself. And it was enlarged using columns the Muslims had taken from Roman ruins or Visigoth churches the Muslims had destroyed. Some of the columns came from as far away as Constantinople. One of the surviving jewels of La Mezquita is the mihrab, an octagonal chamber set into a wall and decorated with handsome mosaic patterns. One of the guiding aims of Islamic religious art is to achieve a kind of rarefied abstraction through repetition of a design. In the year 1236, it was converted into a cathedral, and later the altar was added. But everywhere, we could see the clearly Arabic origins of the Cathedral of Cordoba. In Granada, we came upon the place where the Moors made their last stand in Spain. Here in the 14th century, they built the mystical red castle, the Alhambra, a masterwork combining light, water, and stone in a fashion that seems almost weightless. The rich Arabic designs are everywhere. And in contrast to Cordoba, when the Christians took over, they did not touch the Moorish complex, perhaps the most important Arabic architectural contribution to this part of the world. Just up the hill from the Alhambra is one of the most elegant gardens in all Spain. At the end of a 5-minute walk is the Generalife, the cool summer palace of the Moorish rulers. The path led us through a beautiful stand of tall cypresses. The last Moorish ruler is said to have wept as he left the Generalife for Africa. There is a handsome view from here down across the Alhambra into the hills beyond, but the view in the other direction strikes a quite different note, more somber and more ironic too. For on this hillside, with a splendid view up toward the Alhambra, are the dwelling places of the Andalusian poor. They are not exactly homeless, but their homes are in caves. Jorge Manuel is a gypsy. He came originally from Portugal, and he's been making a home here in the cave for more than a decade. And so it is no wonder that music is one of the few amenities he can enjoy, and it's also no wonder that he plays the blues. The sparse decorations in Manuel's cave attest to the old human idea of creating a home. No matter how poor they may be, people want to have their possessions about them. They want a place. The gypsies have contributed much to Spanish life, in music, in dance, in dress, in food, but they have always remained outsiders. If you live here, it's almost impossible to aspire to breaking away, to moving up. The caves have been here for hundreds of years. There are fewer people living in them today than in the past, but oddly enough, one of the great Andalusian feasts, the Feria of Seville, is dedicated each year specifically to the cave dwellers of Andalusia. Ever since the lovely city of Seville grew immensely rich by holding the legal monopoly of trade with the New World, and that was some 300 years ago, Seville has been a showy place where the people know how to cast caution to the winds. And that is never clearer than each April, when Seville's most glittering festival, the Feria, takes over the town. The Andalusian horse is an important part of the grand festivities, and many people who don't own an Andalusian rent one for the week.
Para
700 miles to the southwest of continental Spain, far out in the Atlantic, is another part of Spain. The 7 Canary Islands have a special place in the Spanish heart.
Spanish character as such, I think it's difficult to know whether there is such a Spanish character, because there are Spanish characters in plural. The Canary Islands has been very much related and to Spain, of course, it's part of Spain, and has been very much related to Latin America, because sailors traditionally stayed for some time in Canary Islands on the way to, let's say, Venezuela or to Latin America, and the way back. And there is strong population from also Latin America. People have been there and stayed there. It's a perfect place for tourism. Temperature is always very well balanced. It's never too warm, never too cold. You can swim all the year round. And really it's a very privileged group of islands. By the way, if you marry a Canarian girl, you'll live in the Canary Islands at the end, because they don't like to live outside its own island.
We are on the island of Tenerife, and the place is a paradise for bird watchers, or at least for parrot watchers. The Canaries, however, are no longer here. We found ourselves next in the town of San Sebastian in the Basque country.
Then you have the Basques in the north, perhaps are now in the United States because there are a lot of shepherds, which is the origin, that now have become important industrialists. It's a different mentality, perhaps somewhere more closed. They are solid people.
The Basque region has long been known as favoring political separatism, but despite this tradition, the Basque lands are also a place where people live their own lives. On the waterfront, we met with Senor Xavier Albistur, the former mayor of San Sebastian.
Bueno, tendremos que decir que los vascos tenemos muchas vicisitudes en nuestra vida y muy complejas y muy diferentes. A este país se le ha conocido tristemente.
Regrettably, this country is frequently associated with terrorism. In the everyday life of the Basque region, terrorism amounts to less than 1%. The Basque region, this country, primarily strives to become a developed area. We are trying to build up our industry to a new level.
Later, Senor Albistur told us of the historic Basque flag, and that the monarchs of Spain have always frequented this coastal resort.
In this country, in the Basque region, we are a close-knit society. Everything starts with a family and continues with a group of friends or friendly circles. The next level are people we meet in a bar. We are now such a bar. We discuss everything here: sports, politics, and cultural life. We debate and we bet. Betting is, of course, only a game. We bet about sports matches or events which may occur. We eat many different items in the bars, among others typical Basque dishes on small trays, but the main thing is that we meet our friends here, who are in fact extensions of the family.
In a country renowned for good food, the Basque kitchen takes second place to none. And though San Sebastian may not be quite as festive as Seville, it is certainly as convivial. It is said that the Basques know how to live. And they also know how to fish. For years they have sailed their small boats as far as the waters off Scotland. And, like all Basques, the fishermen are fiercely independent. Fishing is not just an industry here, it is a way of life. On the Mediterranean, at the other end of the Pyrenees Mountains, is a more benign shoreline, La Costa Brava. Brava means wild, but that refers only to the rugged upthrust rocks along the water. There are also miles of splendid sand, and this is the most splendid of Spanish seaside resorts. There are many such Mediterranean coasts in competition with La Costa Brava. The coast of the sun, the coast of light, the white coast, the green coast. For many years, the Mediterranean shore has attracted not only tourists, but artists and scholars. And this is where Senor Xavier Roberto gets away for a change of pace.
I am what you could call a philosopher, professor, writer. And what I do nowadays is politics, in a way. I am in the European Parliament. I can escape here, where is my family, and try to write or to go around or be with you. Here in Empúries, the 6th century before Christ, the Greeks arrived. Then arrived the Carthaginians from Africa. Then the Romans came together with the Greeks in order to chase the Carthaginians, and all them passed by these walls. All them came here.
We had come to Catalonia to see the home and the museum of Salvador Dali.
Catalonia has been always very fond of art and, very the Mediterranean littoral, very influenced by all these artistic and feelings and influences. Some of the leading painters of the 20th century, which are from this region, you have Miró or Dalí, as Tapia is now.
He was a surrealist, and in the Catalan tradition, an anarchist as well. Barcelona on the Mediterranean, a great seaport, a nerve center of Spanish industry, a place of change and progress, and a city of over 3 million people. Barcelona is a center of publishing and the arts, and the proud possessor of the work of Antonio Gaudí. At the end of the last century, Gaudí, who was a local architect, offered to build Barcelona a new cathedral. It was built without plans, but with a religious fervor that rivaled that of El Greco. Gaudí also designed another distinctive project for Barcelona, the Güell Park. Though the park was never completed, it is a magnet for Barcelonians as well as travelers. Antonio Gaudí was, in fact, an artist who used Barcelona itself as his palette. His flowing, trademark design is found on several apartment houses, and his influence has continued in interior design, painting, and even in fashion. The state of dress of the Catalonians, as well as the state of their well-being, can always be assessed on a walk along the Ramblas. This is the main street of the town for strolling and sauntering and looking at the rich array of people. Here you can buy the necessities of life from the century-old Market of St. Joseph. Back in the days of Franco, These buildings and byways echoed with more anxious feelings. The dictator had dictated, for example, that the native tongue, Catalan, was not to be spoken. But today, with a democracy in place, we found people to be quite relaxed. They say what they want to say. They speak the language they want to speak. And one man, of course, has always spoken out. In the museum of Pablo Picasso, one walks past the images silently, stunned by the endless variety of his genius. Happily, his is one voice that will speak to us forever. The dancing of the sardana is no longer controlled by the government. The citizens have a new freedom to dance with whomever they wish, in whatever dress they wish.
The point of the sardana is that you dance it with anybody who is at your side when you go out of church. Nobody's organizing you. During the Franco period, they wanted us to dance only when we were dressed, prepared for this. So it became a sort of folklorical tradition and not an act of taking the hands of the others. For Catalans, to dance the sardana has been an act of affirmation of ourselves, of the trust to our country and hope.
So in the search for the new Spain, a free Spain, they have found that the country's old human values, as seen in a dance, for example, do not have to be lost, but can indeed be enhanced by the search.